Don't stop them. Those were the first words out of my mouth when I realized the tow truck disappearing around the corner was carrying my 1968 Mustang. It was 5:42 on a Friday morning, still dark enough for the streetlights to throw pale yellow circles across Stonebrick Ridge, and the cold air smelled like diesel exhaust, wet pavement, and somebody's automatic sprinkler system. I stood barefoot in my driveway with a mug of coffee cooling in my hand, while steel chains rattled against a rollback less than 30 feet away. My pickup was already gone. So was my service truck. The Mustang was number 3, its polished rear bumper catching the streetlight as the hydraulic bed tilted upward with a low mechanical whine. Across the street, HOA President Vanessa Whitmore stood beside her white luxury SUV wearing a cream-colored jacket, spotless sneakers, and the satisfied expression of someone watching a problem finally disappear. She had a clipboard tucked beneath one arm. Of course she did. Vanessa carried that thing around Stonebrick Ridge like it came with a federal badge. She saw me step outside and lifted her coffee cup in my direction. You were warned, Ryan. I looked at the empty spaces where my vehicles had been parked, then at the fourth tow truck turning onto my street. Most people would have started yelling. I didn't. I pulled out my phone. The dispatcher answered on the second ring. North County Recovery. Morning, Lisa. It's Ryan. Silence. Then her voice changed immediately. Ryan? Why am I looking at your home address on 4 HOA tow orders? I watched the final rollback ease toward my driveway, amber lights rotating silently across my garage door. Because Vanessa finally did it. Lisa lowered her voice. That's your Mustang on Unit 12. I know. Want me to stop the driver? I watched Vanessa glance down at her clipboard, checking something off with a blue pen. That little motion mattered more than she could possibly understand. No, I said. Tow it. Lisa went quiet again. Ryan, you own the company. Exactly. The hydraulic system hissed as the driver lowered the bed. Vanessa smiled wider. She thought I had finally run out of options. What she didn't know was that every North County truck carried synchronized GPS tracking, time-stamped dispatch records, forward-facing cameras, and digital copies of every authorization submitted by whoever ordered the tow. She also didn't know I had purchased North County Recovery 8 months earlier and deliberately kept the old company name after the acquisition. To Vanessa, I was just the blue-collar guy at number 214 with 2 mini vehicles and grease under his fingernails. She had spent 6 weeks trying to teach me who controlled this neighborhood. Now she was standing 30 feet away, signing paperwork inside a system I owned. The driver hooked my final vehicle, checked his tablet, and looked toward me with obvious confusion. I gave him a small nod. Do your job. The winch started humming. Cable tightened. Tires rolled slowly onto steel. Vanessa checked another box on her clipboard. I took one sip of cold coffee and watched her create another piece of evidence. 6 weeks earlier, none of that seemed possible. Back then, Stonebrick Ridge was exactly what I had paid for. Quiet streets, trimmed lawns, and enough distance between houses that I could open my garage on Saturday morning without becoming part of somebody else's breakfast conversation. My name is Ryan Mercer. I was 43 years old, and I had spent more than 20 years around engines, hydraulic lines, recovery trucks, and people having very bad days on the side of highways. I started as a driver when I was 19, working midnight calls for a towing company outside Columbus, Ohio. Snowstorms taught me patience. Interstate recoveries taught me precision. Business taught me something even more useful. Paperwork matters long after the engine shuts off. By 40, I own Mercer Recovery and Towing, a regional operation with 32 trucks, 2 storage yards, and contracts covering everything from roadside breakdowns to commercial recovery. 8 months before Vanessa started watching my driveway, I bought North County Recovery from an old friend who wanted to retire. I kept its name, its trucks, and most of its employees because customers trusted the brand. My name was on corporate documents, not on the doors. That detail would become important. At home, though, I did not look like anybody's idea of a company owner. I wore work boots, faded jeans, and shirts that usually carried at least one streak of grease. My house was comfortable but ordinary. The garage mattered more to me than the kitchen. That was where I kept the Mustang. I had bought the car 11 years earlier as a tired restoration project with dull paint, cracked weather stripping, and an engine that coughed every cold morning. I rebuilt it slowly, one weekend at a time. The pickup beside it was my daily driver. The service truck carried tools for emergency calls. Occasionally, I brought home a small rollback when I had an early job the next morning. Every vehicle was registered, insured, and parked entirely on my property. Vanessa Whitmore noticed them within my first month. I noticed her perfume first. Something floral and expensive drifted through the open garage before I heard her shoes tapping across the concrete. When I turned around, she was standing at the edge of my driveway holding that same clipboard. Blonde hair perfectly arranged. White sport utility vehicle parked at the curb. Smile polished enough to sell a house. Ryan, we need to discuss your vehicle situation. I wiped my hands on a shop towel. What situation? Her eyes moved from the Mustang to the service truck like she was inspecting abandoned appliances. Stonebrook Ridge has appearance standards. We cannot have commercial clutter lowering the character of the neighborhood. I almost laughed. Instead, I asked her to show me the rule. Her smile tightened. I am the Homeowners Association president. I know the rules. Then bringing me the exact section should be easy. For 3 seconds, the only sound in that garage was the soft ticking of the Mustang's cooling engine. Vanessa tucked the clipboard against her chest. You will receive something in writing. Then she turned and walked away. I watched her white sport utility vehicle disappear around the corner and went back to my tools. At the time, I thought I had ended a pointless conversation. I had actually started a 6-week paper war. The first notice arrived. 3 days later in an envelope thick enough to feel important. I found it wedged inside my mailbox after work. Crisp white paper carrying the Stonebrook Ridge logo across the top and Vanessa Whitmore's signature across the bottom. Unauthorized commercial vehicle storage. $100 fine. 7 days to correct. I stood beside the mailbox while cicadas buzzed in the trees and read the same paragraph twice. Then I walked inside, opened the Homeowners Association documents I had saved when I bought the house, and found the section Vanessa cited. It prohibited commercial vehicles over 10,000 pounds from being stored overnight on common property or public streets. My service truck weighed less than that. More importantly, it was parked on my private driveway. I scanned the page, highlighted the language, and emailed Vanessa a polite response with photographs, registration records, and the exact provision attached. Her answer came 17 minutes later. The board has determined that your vehicles negatively affect neighborhood appearance. That was not what the rule said. I requested a hearing. Vanessa scheduled it for the following Thursday at the clubhouse. The room smelled like burnt coffee and lemon cleaner. 6 folding tables formed a horseshoe beneath fluorescent lights, and Vanessa sat in the center with her clipboard positioned in front of her like evidence in a trial. I brought one folder. She brought attitude. This is not a courtroom, Mr. Mercer, she said after I started explaining the parking provision. Good, I said. Then reading one paragraph should not take long. 2 board members looked down to hide smiles. Vanessa did not. She tapped one manicured finger against my photographs and told me community standards allowed the board discretion. I asked where that discretion was written. She changed the subject to property values. I asked again. She called my service truck an eyesore. I asked again. Finally, the board suspended the fine while they reviewed the language. I walked out thinking common sense had survived another evening. The next Monday, a second notice appeared. Improper vehicle maintenance. $250. Vanessa had photographed me changing the Mustang's oil inside my own garage and claimed I was operating a commercial repair business from my residence. I answered with another letter. Then came a third notice for the rollback I brought home overnight before an early interstate recovery. $500. By then, Vanessa's white sport utility vehicle had become part of my evening routine. It rolled past my house at 6:15, slowed near the driveway, then continued toward the clubhouse. Sometimes I saw the glow of her phone pointed toward my property. I started saving everything. Envelopes, emails, photographs, meeting minutes, dates and times. 20 years in towing had taught me that arguments disappear, but records stay put. Then, on a Wednesday evening, I opened an email from Stonebrook Ridge and felt something shift. The board had approved what Vanessa called an enhanced parking enforcement program. Vehicles deemed non-compliant could now be removed by an authorized towing contractor. At the bottom of the notice was the contractor's name, North County Recovery. I stared at it while the refrigerator hummed behind me. Of all the towing companies in the county, Vanessa had chosen that one. I had purchased North County 8 months earlier. She had just hired my own company to tow my vehicles. I could have ended it with one telephone call. Instead, I opened the attached authorization agreement and started reading. Halfway down the second page, I stopped. Vanessa had signed a statement claiming the Homeowners Association had legal authority over every parking area covered by the program, including private driveways subject to enforcement. I read that sentence again, slower this time. Then I looked through the kitchen window toward my driveway. Vanessa thought she had finally found a bigger hammer. What she had actually done was put her name on the handle. I did not call Vanessa. I did not call the board. I called Lisa Grant, North County Recovery's operations manager, and asked her to send me the complete Stonebrook Ridge account file. 10 minutes later, my inbox filled with documents. The authorization agreement was only the beginning. Vanessa had submitted a neighborhood map with several areas marked in red, including my driveway. She had also provided a list of vehicle descriptions, license plate numbers, and addresses she wanted monitored. Mine appeared 4 times. Mustang. Pickup. Service truck. Rollback. I leaned back in my kitchen chair and listened to the soft hum of the air conditioner while I read every page. Vanessa had been preparing this for weeks. The next morning, I drove 26 miles to North County's yard before sunrise. The place smelled like diesel fuel, cold steel, and yesterday's rain. Amber lights flashed across rows of recovery trucks while drivers checked chains, hydraulic controls, and tablets before their shifts. Lisa met me inside the dispatch office with a paper cup of coffee and the expression she usually reserved for insurance companies that sent incomplete paperwork. "You could cancel the contract," she said. I could. "You could also tell Vanessa who owns North County." I could do that too. Lisa waited. She knew me well enough not to fill silence. I opened the Stonebrook Ridge file and tapped Vanessa's authorization form. Instead, I want everything handled exactly by procedure. No favors for me. No shortcuts for them. Every request gets logged. Every call gets saved. Every authorization gets attached to the job record. Drivers follow normal policy and document where each vehicle is sitting before they touch it. Lisa looked at the highlighted section concerning private driveways. "You think she is going to order one from your property? I think she already believes she can." I was not interested in manufacturing a trap. I did not need one. Vanessa had built the mechanism herself. All I had to do was stop protecting her from the consequences of using it. Over the next 10 days, the pressure increased. Another violation arrived. Then another. Vanessa began sending emails with phrases like final opportunity and immediate enforcement. I answered each one calmly and kept copies. At the next board meeting, she announced the towing program as if she had personally solved suburban crime. She stood beneath the clubhouse lights describing stricter standards while I sat in the back row listening to the ventilation fan rattle overhead. "Residents have had ample opportunity to comply," she said. Her eyes found mine. "Beginning Friday, violations will result in removal." I raised my hand. "Does that include vehicles parked entirely on privately owned driveways?" Vanessa barely hesitated. "Where association standards apply, yes." "And you personally authorized that?" Her smile returned. "As president, I have that authority." I nodded once and wrote the sentence down. Thursday night, I parked all 4 vehicles exactly where they were normally kept. Nothing blocked the sidewalk. Nothing touched the street. Before going inside, I photographed the driveway from 3 angles and checked the security cameras. At 11:48, an email arrived from Vanessa. "Final notice. Towing enforcement begins tomorrow." I set my alarm for 5:30 and placed my phone on the nightstand. At 5:42 the next morning, steel chains rattled outside my bedroom window. By the time I stepped into the driveway, my pickup was already turning the corner behind a North County truck, and Vanessa Whitmore was standing across the street with her clipboard, watching her paperwork become permanent. The 4th vehicle disappeared at 6:11. By 6:15, my driveway looked strangely wide, for clean rectangles of concrete where tires had been sitting less than an hour earlier. Vanessa remained across the street until the final rollback turned the corner. Then she walked toward me, coffee in one hand, clipboard in the other, her perfume cutting through the lingering diesel smell. "I hope this demonstrates that the rules apply to everyone," she said. I looked at the blue pen clipped to her board. "Did you authorize all 4? Her eyebrows lifted. "Personally. Good to know." She mistook that for surrender. I could see it in the way her shoulders relaxed. "You can recover your vehicles after paying the towing charges and bringing your property into compliance." Understood. She walked away before I could say anything else. I went inside, poured out my cold coffee, and called Lisa. She already had the files open. For dispatch records. For location. Photographs. For sets of timestamps. For authorization forms bearing Vanessa's electronic approval. The trucks had recorded their positions through synchronized global positioning system data, and each driver had photographed the vehicles before loading them. Every tire had been inside my property line. Everything is preserved, Lisa said. What now? Treat me like any other customer. That afternoon, I took a rideshare 26 miles to North County's storage yard. I showed identification, signed the standard release documents, and paid every required charge with my personal credit card. It felt ridiculous paying money at a business I owned, but that receipt mattered. I wanted a clean record showing exactly what an ordinary Stonebrook Ridge resident would have experienced. I arranged transportation for the vehicles one at a time and kept every document. By sunset, the Mustang was back inside my garage. The next morning, Vanessa drove past slowly. She saw the Mustang through the open door and stopped. Her window lowered. That vehicle cannot remain there. I set down my socket wrench. It is inside my garage. Do not test the board, Ryan. Then she drove away. That was when I understood this had stopped being about neighborhood appearance. Vanessa needed obedience. Worse, my silence made her think the towing program worked. 3 days later, I received a call from a neighbor named Daniel Brooks. He was 67, retired from the Postal Service, and lived 2 streets over. His daughter had left her car in his driveway overnight while helping him replace a water heater. North County had removed it at Vanessa's request. The next call came from Melissa Carter, a single mother whose plumbing contractor had left a work van outside her house during an emergency repair. Another tow. Then Thomas Reed, a retired Air Force mechanic, knocked on my garage door holding a yellow receipt. His pickup had been removed while his driveway was being resurfaced. I spread their paperwork across my workbench beneath the bright shop lights. Same contractor. Same authorization language. Same signature. Vanessa's. The Mustang sat behind me, chrome reflecting white rectangles. From the overhead fixtures. Until that moment, I had been documenting what she did to me. Now I started a second folder. Daniel. Melissa. Thomas. Dates. Photographs. Property maps. Receipts. By the end of the week, there were 9 disputed removals. Vanessa thought my silence had given her permission to expand. What she had really done was turn one questionable decision into a pattern. By the following Tuesday, the folder had become a binder. 9 disputed tows had turned into 13, and every story sounded different until you looked at the paperwork. Daniel Brooks had his daughter's sedan removed from his own driveway. Melissa Carter had a plumber's van taken during an emergency repair. Thomas Reed had lost access to his pickup for most of a day because Vanessa decided temporary street parking during driveway resurfacing violated community standards. Different vehicles, different streets, same signature, same authorization language, same assumption that nobody would challenge her. I spent that evening at my kitchen table with county parcel maps spread beside the Homeowners Association covenants. The paper smelled faintly of printer toner, and my coffee went cold while I traced property boundaries with a yellow highlighter. Vanessa's towing map claimed authority several feet beyond common property in multiple locations. In some cases, the association had clear enforcement rights. In others, the documents did not support what she was claiming. That distinction mattered. I called every resident who had contacted me and asked for only 3 things: their towing receipt, any notice they received from the association, and permission to preserve copies. No speeches, no promises, just records. Then I called Lisa. How many Stonebrook Ridge jobs since the contract started? I asked. I heard keyboard clicks through the phone. 21. Preserve all 21. Already doing it. That was why I trusted her. North County's system stored dispatch calls, digital authorizations, truck locations, photographs, timestamps, and invoices. None of it needed interpretation. Machines are wonderfully indifferent to ego. A timestamp does not care who is president of the Homeowners Association. A location record does not care how expensive somebody's sport utility vehicle is. It simply remembers where the truck was. 2 days later, Vanessa made the mistake I had been waiting for. She sent a neighborhood-wide email praising the towing program and announcing that she had personally directed enforcement to restore order. Personally directed. I printed the email and slid it into the binder. Friday brought another gift. Meeting minutes from the board secretary recorded Vanessa explaining that she had reviewed and approved individual removals herself. Into the binder that went too. By then, I could have revealed everything. I could have walked into the clubhouse, told Vanessa I owned North County, and watched her expression change. But that would only have ended the argument. I wanted the record complete enough that there would be nothing left to argue about. The monthly board meeting was scheduled for the following Wednesday. Vanessa sent the agenda Sunday night. Item 4 caught my attention, Parking Enforcement Success Review. I smiled when I read it. She was planning to celebrate. Wednesday evening, I arrived early carrying one black binder. Daniel sat near the front. Melissa took a chair beside him. Thomas leaned against the back wall with his arms folded. More residents entered behind them. By 7 o'clock, every chair was occupied. The clubhouse smelled like coffee, floor cleaner, and rain from jackets hanging near the door. Vanessa walked in last. Cream blazer, white folder, blue pen, same clipboard. She looked around the crowded room and smiled as though everyone had come to congratulate her. Then she called the meeting to order and reached item 4. Our new towing partnership has been extremely successful, she said. I opened my binder. Vanessa glanced toward me. In fact, North County Recovery has been remarkably cooperative. I rested my hand on the first page and waited. She still thought the towing company was her strongest witness. Vanessa spent the next 4 minutes congratulating herself. She talked about cleaner streets, stronger standards, and what she called a renewed culture of accountability. Every time she said accountability, Daniel shifted in his chair. Melissa stared at the table. Thomas watched Vanessa without blinking. I waited until she finished. Then I raised my hand. I have 3 questions. Vanessa gave me the patient smile she used whenever she wanted the room to know she considered someone difficult. Make them brief, Ryan. Who approved the individual towing orders? I did. I heard chairs creak behind me. Who determined the homeowners association had authority over the locations where those vehicles were parked? Her blue pen tapped once against the clipboard. As president, I reviewed each violation. And who selected North County Recovery? I negotiated the agreement personally. There it was. 3 answers. 3 clean links in the chain. I stood and carried the black binder toward the front table. Vanessa sighed. If this is another complaint about your vehicles, the board has already addressed it. This is not about my vehicles anymore. I placed the binder on the table. The sound was soft, but the room went quiet around it. I opened to the corporate ownership page and turned it toward her. You said North County has been cooperative. They have. I know. I pointed to my name. I own North County Recovery. Vanessa stared at the page. For the first time since I had met her, her face had no prepared expression. One board member leaned forward. Another whispered, "What?" Vanessa recovered quickly. That creates a serious conflict of interest. It would if I had interfered. I opened the next section. I did the opposite. I showed them my release forms and credit card receipts. I had paid the same charges any customer would pay. I had instructed North County employees to follow ordinary procedure. No altered records. No canceled jobs. No special treatment. Then I placed copies of the 4 authorizations for my vehicles beside Vanessa's clipboard. These are the orders you approved. Her eyes moved across the timestamps. Your contractor accepted them. Correct. And documented them. I turned another page. Location records. Driver photographs. Dispatch logs. Digital approvals. Every North County truck records its location. Every authorization is stored. Every driver photographs the vehicle before loading. That means we know exactly where each vehicle was when you ordered it removed. The board secretary picked up one photograph. My pickup sat clearly inside my driveway. This is private property, she said. Yes. Vanessa's voice sharpened. Association rules still apply to private property. Some do, I said. But that is not the question. I pulled out the county parcel map and placed it beside the towing agreement. The question is whether this contract gave you authority to order these specific removals from these specific locations. Daniel stood and handed his receipt to the secretary. Melissa followed. Then Thomas. One by one, other residents began placing papers on the table. Vanessa looked around the room, and I watched the confidence drain from her posture. This is ridiculous, she said. These people violated community standards. I opened the final section of the binder. Then you should have no problem explaining all 21 towing orders. She froze. 21. North County preserved every one. I slid her neighborhood-wide email across the table, followed by the meeting minutes carrying her own words. And you were kind enough to document that you personally directed the enforcement. Vanessa looked down at her blue pen, the same pen she had used to check boxes while my cars disappeared. She finally understood what had happened. I had never needed to trap her. I had only needed to let her keep signing. For 3 full seconds, nobody spoke. The ventilation fan rattled above us. Rain tapped against the clubhouse windows, and somewhere near the coffee station a paper cup rolled across the floor. Vanessa finally reached for the towing agreement. The board needs time to review this. Absolutely, I said. That is why everyone gets a copy. I opened the binder and removed a prepared packet for each board member. The secretary, Linda Harper, started with the county parcel maps. She placed Vanessa's enforcement map beside them and traced the boundaries with her finger. These do not match. No, I said. They do not. Vanessa leaned toward her. The association has enforcement rights throughout Stonebrook Ridge. Linda looked up. That is not the same thing as having authority to remove vehicles from every location. I did not argue the law for her. I did not need to. The documents were doing the work. Next came the dispatch records. Each request showed a date, time, vehicle, location, and authorization source. Vanessa's name appeared again and again. Then came the photographs. Daniel's daughter's sedan sitting in his driveway. Melissa's plumber's van parked beside her house. My Mustang behind my property line. Thomas's pickup positioned exactly where he had described. 21 jobs. 21 digital trails. Vanessa tried another angle. North County should have refused improper requests. That question can be reviewed too, I said. But North County did not create these authorization forms. I tapped the signature field. You submitted them. The board treasurer, Mark Ellison, had been silent until then. He opened the invoice section and frowned. Why were some residents charged association administrative fees in addition to towing charges? Vanessa's head turned toward him. Those are compliance costs. Where were they approved? Mark asked. She did not answer. That was the moment the room changed. This was no longer Ryan Mercer versus Vanessa Whitmore. Board members began asking their own questions. Residents started comparing notices. Linda requested the complete financial ledger for the parking program. Mark wanted every payment reconciled. Another director moved to suspend towing enforcement immediately pending review. The motion passed 4 votes to 1. Vanessa was the only no vote. The following morning, North County received written notice that Stonebrook Ridge had suspended all towing requests. I forwarded the preserved records to the association's attorney and insurance carrier exactly as requested. I also provided copies to affected residents so they could pursue reimbursement through the proper process. Within 2 weeks, an independent review identified multiple removals that lacked adequate authorization under the governing documents and several administrative charges that had not been properly approved by the board. Residents received notices that disputed towing expenses would be reviewed for reimbursement. Vanessa stopped driving past my house. Her white sport utility vehicle remained behind her garage door most mornings. Then came the special meeting. No cream blazer this time. No confident speech. Vanessa sat at the end of the table while Linda read the findings into the record. The board voted to remove Vanessa as president and appointed an interim replacement while the financial review continued. Her clipboard sat beside her, closed. I expected to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt something quieter. Relief. Daniel squeezed my shoulder on his way out. Melissa smiled and held up her reimbursement notice. Thomas simply nodded. Outside, the rain had stopped. The pavement reflected the clubhouse lights, and the air smelled clean. Vanessa had spent weeks treating paperwork like a weapon. In the end, paperwork became the one thing she could not talk her way around. 3 weeks later, Stonebrook Ridge sounded normal again. No tow trucks idling at sunrise. No tires slowing outside my driveway. No envelopes appearing in my mailbox every few days with another invented emergency printed across the top. On Saturday morning, I raised the garage door and let the cool October air roll across the concrete. The Mustang sat beneath the overhead lights, exactly where Vanessa had once insisted it did not belong. I spent an hour adjusting the carburetor and polishing fingerprints from the chrome. The smell of gasoline, wax, and warm engine oil filled the garage. My coffee sat on the workbench beside the old black binder. I had kept it, but I did not need to open it anymore. The board completed its review and approved reimbursements for residents whose vehicles had been improperly removed. My 4 towing charges came back too, including the administrative fees Vanessa had tried to attach to them. Daniel got his money back. Melissa did too. Thomas stopped by one afternoon holding his reimbursement check and a box of donuts. "Best parking ticket I ever got," he said. I laughed. The new board suspended the old enforcement program completely while an attorney rewrote the towing policy. Private property boundaries had to be verified before any future removal request. Individual board officers could no longer authorize towing alone. Every disputed order required documentation and review. It was boring, detailed, slow. Exactly how rules with real consequences should work. Vanessa remained in the neighborhood, but the clipboard disappeared. She was no longer president, and the financial review had stripped away the image of absolute authority she had spent years building. When I saw her at the mailbox, we usually exchanged nothing more than a nod. That was fine with me. I had never wanted an enemy. I had wanted my driveway left alone. Around 9 that Saturday morning, I heard a familiar diesel engine approaching from the end of the street. A North County rollback came around the corner, amber lights off, polished steel catching the morning sun. Unit 12. The same truck that had carried away my Mustang. The driver, Mike, spotted me in the garage and slowed. He lowered his window. "Morning, boss." "Morning, Mike." "Mustang running right. Better than ever." He gave me a thumbs up and continued toward the main road. Across the street, a mailbox door clicked shut. Vanessa was standing there with a stack of letters against her chest. She had heard him. Her eyes followed the North County truck, then moved toward me, then toward the Mustang behind my shoulder. For a second, neither of us said anything. I picked up my shop towel and wiped a thin line of grease from my fingers. That was the part Vanessa had misunderstood from the beginning. She thought power was the ability to make a telephone call and order somebody else's property removed. She thought a title on a homeowners association board made every opinion enforceable. She thought my silence meant I was intimidated. It never did. Silence gave me time to read, time to document, time to let every timestamp, photograph, signature, receipt, and recorded authorization settle into place. I never needed to shout louder than Vanessa. I never needed special treatment from my own company. I only needed the same rules applied to everyone, including the person holding the clipboard. I turned back toward the Mustang and closed the hood with a solid click. Behind me, Vanessa walked back to her house. The street stayed quiet. Justice usually does. It does not need a siren, a speech, or somebody celebrating in the middle of the road. Sometimes it sounds like a ratchet turning inside an open garage, while the person who tried to control everything finally understands one simple truth. Power can make noise. Evidence lasts. And justice is smart, patient, and inevitable.